Hello everyone, let's start with the topic today, human eye and the colorful world. Today we shall be discussing the topics inside it, structure of human eye, power of accommodation and defects of eye. Let's take the topics one by one. First we shall be starting with the structure of human eye. Alright, let's start with our first topic, structure of our human eye. This is a typical schematic diagram of your human eye. Let us start with one by one. The outermost part of the human eye is known as cornea. This is the outermost covering through which light enters your eye. When your light enters the human eye, it goes through this part. This part is known as aqueous humor. It is a jelly-like substance which has your refractive index equals to 1.336. This is the average value of your refractive index. Now, after this, our light enters this part. This is known as our eye lens, whose refractive index, average refractive index, actually its refractive index vary from 1.386 to 1.406. So we take its average value to be 1.396. It enters our eye lens through this small aperture. This small aperture or hole is known as pupil. Now, how do we get this hole? Do you see this kind of figure? This is nothing but actually the diaphragm which gives the color to our eye. This diaphragm is known as iris, and this iris controls the opening curvature of this pupil. And from pupil, if we have a small hole, that means some small amount of light enters your eye. If we have a larger aperture or larger hole, that means much larger amount of light is entering your eye. So basically, pupil controls the amount of light entering the eye. Now, this is our eye lens. Eye lens is connected by these fiber-like structures which are known as ciliary muscles. The functioning of these muscles, when these muscles tighten, what they do? They just decrease the curvature of our eye lens, hence increasing the focal length. And when these muscles loosen, in turn, they just increase the curvature of your eye lens and decreasing your focal length. Now, what about this part? This part of the eye is filled with another jelly-like substance which is known as vitreous humor. Again, its refractive index is almost same as the refractive index of your aqueous humor, but there is a slight variation, 1.337. Okay. Now, here, this outermost part, the white part that you see for your eye, that part is known as sclerotic. Alright, coming to this portion, the inner side portion where whenever your light rays come and focus, they get focused on this part. This inside part is known as retina. Retina in our eyes act as a screen on which all the light rays get focused on and hence we get an image. This retina, the outer part of this retina is connected by many number of optical nerves, and these optical nerves directly go to our brain. Retina is also known as yellow spot because all the light rays, they get focused on this screen, and this screen gets illuminated as a sort of white or yellow part. This portion where no light falls, this portion is known as blind spot. We call it blind spot because since no light falls on this part, hence we'll get no image formed on this part. This is the basic structure of our human eye. Now, whenever a light ray enters our eye, let's suppose these are two light rays entering our eye from the lens, they get focused over the retina. Here on this part, they get focused on. The diameter of our eye lens is almost about 2.5 centimeter. Hence, the focal length of our eye lens, or simply put, the focal length of our eye is 2.5 centimeter. Okay. Now, let's come to our next part known as power of accommodation. Power of accommodation. We know that our eyes have the ability to focus on the objects which are kept at different distances. The least distance that our eye could focus easily is 25 centimeter. We call it capital D, that is, this is also called as near point of distinct vision. Why do we call it distinct vision? Because at this point our eye focuses clearly and we get a distinct image. Now, how about the far point? The farthest point that our eyes could focus is infinity. This is our farthest point. This is known as far point of distinct vision. Alright, since our eyes could easily adjust its focal length so as to focus this distance also and focus this distance also, and intermediately focusing all the distances coming between these two, that ability of the eye to adjust its focal length so as to focus the different objects is known as power of accommodation. Now, what happens when we get the defects of the eye? I am having a specs, I am having myopia. That means my eyes cannot focus the objects which are kept at infinity that clearly. Or suppose some person has got hypermetropia. Hypermetropia in the sense that person cannot read the letters kept at 25 centimeter distance. These defects come from the inability of the eyes to focus these 2 points. Alright, let's discuss our defects of eyes. This is our normal eye. This is known as the eyeball. Whenever light enters our eye lens, they get focused on the retina, right? Now, depending upon whether the light rays get focused outside the retina or inside the retina, we have mainly classified the defects into two categories. One is known as hypermetropia. Another one is known as myopia. Common name for these two defects is, this is known as long-sightedness. Sightedness means a person is able to see the far objects clearly but is unable to focus the nearby objects. Myopia is also known as short-sightedness. Short-sightedness means a person can easily focus the nearby objects but is unable to focus the far away objects that clearly. Alright, let's discuss these two main defects one by one. Alright, this one is our normal eye, that is without any defect. This is our defected eye, or we call it hypermetropic eye. Now, what leads to this defect? First of all, let's see what this defect is. In this defect, the rays after going through the eye lens would focus behind the retina. Now, there are three reasons for that. Those three reasons are connected with these three parts. First reason could be eyeball is contracted or the person has a shortening of eyeball. Next one, for your eyelids. Eyelids, it could happen that the curvature of the eyelids has lessened. Now, how does the curvature of the eyelids lessen? It could happen due to the tightening of your ciliary muscles. These are the three main causes for a person to have a hypermetropia kind of defect. Now, what could be done to correct this defect? Very easy. To correct this defect, we want that these rays get focused on the retina. For these rays to get focused on the retina, we need more convergence. If we require more convergence, that means we would use a convex corrective lens over here. With a convex corrective lens, what happens? Okay, let me use another chalk. These rays, they get converged over here, and from here these rays again get converged and focus on the retina now. This is the focusing point. So this is how the hypermetropic eye is corrected. So the corrective lens for our hypermetropic eye is a convex lens. Now, what does this convex lens actually does? The object that is kept at D, that is 25 centimeter, our normal or our defected eye could not focus that object. So convex lens makes the image of that object at a distance where defected eye could focus easily. Let's suppose our defected eye could focus an object at 50 centimeter. Okay, so what does our convex lens do? Putting it in our lens formula, convex lens would make the image of your object which is kept at 25 centimeters. So our object is at D. It would make its image at this point, the point where defected eye could easily focus. And so we would get the focal length of our corrective lens, or 1 by f is equal to power. We could easily get the power of our convex lens. Let us do this question over here. Look at the calculations over here. We have put u equals to d, that is our minus 25 centimeter. V, the image distance from our corrective lens, as the object distance of our defected eye where it could focus clearly, as minus 50. From here we get the focal length of our corrective lens as 50 centimeters. Putting it in our equation for the power, power equals to 100 by f when f is in centimeters. Putting it over here, we get the power of the corrective lens is plus 2 diopter. Okay, let's discuss another defect called as myopia. Let's start with our next defect known as myopia. This is the case for our normal eye. Now, this is the case for our myopic eye. In myopic eye, the lens focuses your light rays or your object at a point just before the retina. Now, what could be the reason behind it? Again, the reason lies in these three components. First one, either the eyeball has been stretched or elongated. This is mostly a birth defect. Or the curvature of the eye lens has increased. Or it could happen that the curvature of the eye lens has increased due to the loosening of your ciliary muscles. Now, what should be done to correct this defect? To correct this defect, we want these rays to get focused over here, right? For these rays to get focused over here, we want that these rays, if these rays somehow get a bit of diverge over here, so we could easily converge it here, right? For that, we would use a concave lens as our corrective lens. Now, what does our concave lens does? Concave lens just diverges these rays from here, and now easily these rays could be focused over here. They have been focused on the retina. Okay. So now again applying it in our equation. Here we are using a concave lens. Myopic eye, that means short-sightedness. So a person cannot focus the object which is kept at infinity. But what it could focus? Any object which is kept before infinity, right? So the image distance from our concave lens would be the object distance of the defected eye which it could focus clearly. Let's suppose defected eye could focus an object kept at 100 meters distance. Alright, let's do it over here. Or let's suppose it is 100 centimeter. Okay, putting it in our equation, 1 by minus infinity equals to 1 by, instead of we would put 100. So the focal length of our corrective lens comes out to be 1 by 100. Putting it in our power formula, we have power equals to minus 1 diopter. Here 100 centimeter is before the lens, that's why we have used a minus sign over here. So our power for this defected eye is minus 1 diopter, which is for our corrective lens, that is our concave lens. There is also one more defect known as presbyopia. Now that defect comes from aging. When a person ages, let's suppose a person gets to 60 or 70 years, at that old age what happens? The person gets both type of defects, also hypermetropia and also the myopia. For that, doctors recommend that person to have a dual lens. Dual lens means the upper part of the lens is a concave lens to focus the faraway objects, and the lower part of the lens is a kind of convex lens to focus on the objects which are kept nearer. Okay, that will in the defects of the eye. In the next class we shall be taking the atmospheric refraction.